pantry today because there's no vent in there. So
Okay,
I'm
good.
hoping that it'll stay warmer in the
Good.
pantry.
Good.
And then if not, I'm gonna do the oven light thing.
Oven with the light on. That's a good idea.
That's what everybody says to do online.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I've had an oven light in a long time, so I ordered some.
Good. I found a mix for our starter for gluten-free.
Okay, I'm going to call our meeting back to order, and we're going to have our 6.7, our 1 p.m. item, which is a public hearing, consideration of presentation of 2025 general plan, housing element annual progress report, and 2025 general plan annual progress report, and I'll turn it over to Director Turner.
Thank you. This brief presentation will be covered by our Associate Planner, Trish Turner, who did the work for these two reports required by the state.
Hi, good afternoon, Supervisors. Today I'm just presenting the 2025 annual progress reports for the general plan and housing elements. Submitting these by April 1st deadline is a state requirement under Government Code 65400 that keeps us eligible for vital housing and infrastructure grants. The general plan annual progress report is actually based on the 2008 adopted general plan, but with the Lake County General Plan 2050 and all of the actions that were taken in 2025 to start the process, a lot of that information is going to be included in our general plan annual progress report for 2025. So the adoption of the climate adaptation plan, streamlining housing approvals for zoning code amendments, the local area plan draft reviews, the Lake County 2050 draft update, housing site inventory update, and the housing action implementation plan. So all of these are included in this, and with this board's recommendation, then we would be able to submit these reports to the state by the April 1st deadline.
And one more, Trish did discover an omission in a past year's report that also helps Lake County. So why don't you tell them about that?
So in 2023, the Collier Avenue Apartments, which was a unit that was issued building permits for 40 units. 39 of those units were for low-income housing and very low-income housing that are deed restricted for 50 years. Those were omitted from the 2023 housing element annual progress report. I am in works with HCD to update those numbers. It's not a priority for them to update them yet until after the 2025 housing element annual progress report has been done for the whole state. And then once that is done, then HCD will update our RENA numbers.
Okay, anything further?
There's no action required by the board for the submission to the state, but we did want you to keep you informed.
Okay. Do we have questions from supervisors? We'll start with Supervisor Owen.
Oh, shoot. Trying to open up my questions. Do we have the numbers on the homeless population to know if what's required for the homeless is actually that those numbers are jiving?
For the homeless population, we do rely on the annual PIP count.
And I knew that was done in January, right?
Sure. I have not heard if those are out yet.
Okay, and the veterans, is that done at the same time, I believe?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The homeless veterans, okay. And I'll have to come back to my second question because I have to defer it. The way I wrote it wasn't real clear.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm looking up our raw data. Our total last year was, I believe, 317.
Around there.
This year was 328. We did see an increase of about 6 veterans that were unsheltered.
Okay.
Before we were at 14. So we were at 20 at this year's count.
Okay.
So slight increase, but I mean, it's not, you can't look at the PIC count on a year to year. You really have to look at longer terms in order to see what the trend is, because some years it's beautiful and sunny like it was this year, and some years there's no way you're going to find people when it's pouring rain. So
And were those still preliminary numbers, or?
Those
don't
are
think we act-
preliminary numbers. Thank you
We're
for.
still waiting for the final.
Yeah.
But it should be close. Anything further from supervisors? No? I'm going to go ahead and open it up to the public. Do we have anybody in the room that wishes to comment on this item? Not seeing any? No hands? I'll bring it back to the board, and I believe there was no action. This was just a progress report for us to be aware of it. So we thank you for bringing it forward and presenting it. And I'm 7 minutes shy. What was that?
Calendars?
Calendars, yes. So we'll move on to calendars. Is somebody ready to start? Or Supervisor Crandall?
Yeah, so I'll start out, we have RCRC tomorrow in Sacramento, Rural County Representatives of California. Thursday, we have a TIPO meeting at 1, and then at 2, Juvenile Justice. And then I'll be going to the Clear Lake Oaks Glen Haven Business Association in the evening. Friday, I have pretty open. Of course, Saturday, there's some Easter events in the North Shore that I'll be attending. And then on Monday, there is a meeting that I have, I think Supervisor Sabatier and I have with HCD. So then I'll be back here Tuesday. Well, I don't know about Tuesday, no. Okay, I'll leave it at that.
Go ahead, Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, so last Thursday and Friday, I was at the Governor's Task Force, Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force in Jamestown. And it was a really, really great presentation all day of all the strategies that are being developed for wildfire resilience and forest health. And it was the Sierra regional meeting, because it moves around twice a year. There's different meetings throughout the year. And then on Friday, I toured the home hardening program that was in Tuolumne. And they're just starting to get their assessments done. They haven't quite started swinging hammers yet, but there's definitely a lot of collaboration happening between our two pilots. Tomorrow, I've got a call with a constituent, and then the NCO governing board meeting in Ukiah. Thursday, we're having the in-person training for fiscal for LAFCO. I may not we're not gonna have a gender review, so I'm not gonna do that. I've got a call with a constituent in the afternoon, and then Friday, I will be at Mount Vista Middle School for Career Day, and then here at the courthouse for the WAMB special meeting. And then that's it for this week.
Thank you. Supervisor Sabatier, are you ready?
Yeah. Tomorrow, got to handle some PEG stuff, meeting with the Food Policy Council and an ad hoc committee of a proposal that I'm excited to work on that we'll be bringing back to the Board of Supervisors soon enough. Going to attend the Fire Protection District meeting later on that day. Starting off on Thursday, Judge's Breakfast. I did a check-in with Supervisor Crandall and others for our Powder Valley project, just to get a check-in. We did have a good meeting last week, where even Secretary Rollins kind of jumped in onto our meeting, which is good to know that her interest in the project is that high. The PEG TV, thanks to Fresh Blood, has started to see some movement on our youth projects. And I am going to meet with one of the greenlit projects to discuss a little bit deeper the content of which they wanted to interview folks about. And that will be an interview with behavioral health, an interview with others related to substance use disorders and such. And so happy to see that get kicked off. Thankful for that. Friday morning, we'll have a Redbud Fire Safe Council. We'll be revealing our logo, and we are also preparing for a May 2nd Wildfire Expo to get people ready for fire season and give them all the information they need, and also kind of let the world know who we are. During the rest of that late morning, afternoon, I'm going to be doing a swim tour starting in Clear Lake. They have a couple facilities. Wanted to see what they're working on, and I will be heading over to District 3 as well, just to finish off. And while I'm there, I'll be coming back here to Lakeport for the special meeting for Wanby. And I'll stop there.
Supervisor Owen?
Okay. So starting this week, yesterday we had a meeting with special districts in the city of Clear Lake. Tomorrow I have Calpine meeting concerning demolition of 2 power plants. Jessica, are you gonna make that? There's, it should be tomorrow, for the demolition of, Bear Canyon and Ford Flat.
Is that with the,
It's with the contractor.
yeah, I don't,
Okay.
I'm not, no, I won't be there tomorrow.
Okay. And then, I think rural counties, I'm not sure when that one is, I just messed it up, my calendar. On Friday, I have Red Bud Fire Safe Council and Blue Ribbon Committee. I think on the following Monday, I think I have 4 meetings. I know we don't have a supervisor meeting. I think on Tuesday instead, I'm replacing our supervisors meeting with a couple of constituents. One of them, I believe, is Bar X Ranch on what they are planning to do there. And on, I think it's Wednesday, was it, Monday? Anyway, I know I have grand jury on Wednesday, next week. And our first Twin Lakes Firewise Community Meeting will be on Thursday next week.
Okay. Last week I attended the Mendo Mill Pro event over at Robinson Rancheria. Also went on a tour with RCD of the Clear Lake Oaks Keys, Schindler Creek Revitalization, Blue Ribbon Project with Supervisor Owen and Crandall. I attended an AVA meeting for Supervisor Crandall last week. I wanted to thank Supervisor Sabatier for covering the EMCC last week. I had a law library meeting, went to the Tango Mike open house event with Supervisor Crandall, attended the Coal Creek Advisory Committee. There was no significant report. Attended a short class on Native California. Attended the Rodeo Association breakfast fundraiser in Kelseyville over the weekend, as well as the Scotts Valley community event. Did the hitch survey for this week. Yesterday had a meeting with the city regarding a donation of a significant piece of art that's going to be coming into our community soon. Went to the APC Road Safety meeting last night. I plan to attend the Utro PHIX Town Hall that Water Resources is hosting this week at the Soper Reese. I'm also going to the Senate bill required fiscal and finance training this week. Supervisor Crandall and I have Public Defender Oversight Committee meeting this week, along with CAO and other committee members. And then I'll finish the week Friday with the first quarterly meeting of the year for the Blue Ribbon Committee. And that concludes our reports, and we're almost exactly on time again. So I'll go ahead and call our 1:30 p.m. item, which is sitting as the Lake County Sanitation District Board of Directors, presentation considering sewer rate studies for Lake Osan, Land's End, South Lakeport Sewer, and Lake Osan Southeast Regional. And we have our Special Districts Administrator, Robin Bourret, and staff here, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to present this item.
And why Joanna's bringing this up, I'm Robin Bourret, your Special District Administrator. Today, Jesse and I are here to give you a presentation on the previous approved contract for the rate studies for lands in South Lakeport and Southeast. This is an informational presentation. We have our consultant here to walk us through where we are with the studies and how we've come up with the numbers. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison.
All right, good afternoon. Oh, thank you. Okay. So for the Lands End system, it is only a collection system. That system collects and conveys wastewater flows over to the city of Lakeport for treatment. So when we talk about the Lands End system, it's pipelines and lift stations, pump stations. It serves about 230 customers, which equates to about 470 population or so.
I just want to clarify that it's Lands End and South Lakeport.
Great. So the Lands End system has not had any major rate increases recently. The recent adjustments have been the consumer price index, so just a few percent per year to keep up with inflation. So that last rate study was done in 2011. We do recommend public agencies do rate studies every 5 years just to keep up with the operations and maintenance of the system. Okay. So as part of this rate study, our overall goal is to make sure that Lands End is covering its cost of service, so operating costs plus capital improvements. But also, we looked at the rate structure, so how different types of customers are charged based on their usage of the sewer system. So this rate study covers a 5-year period, planning for July 1st increases each year through 2030. So rate adjustments are governed by Proposition 218. That means we conduct a rate study explaining the cost of service and how different customers should be charged proportionally. Today is an information item just explaining the draft rate study report. When the board is ready, we'll mail a notice to all property owners within Lands End, all the affected parcels. The notice will be in English and in Spanish, explaining the need for the rate adjustment, as well as the Proposition 218 hearing date and protest procedures. Okay, so Lands End is in rough financial shape. You are collecting about $230,000 in revenues, but costs are about $280,000. So most of your costs are those Lakeport sewer treatment fees. So the county does not set those fees. The city of Lakeport sets those fees. It's essentially a cost pass-through for treatment. So what that looks like graphically is the green bar there is revenues, which is mostly rates. You have like a small amount of miscellaneous revenues. And then the red portion of the chart are expenses. So expenses are greater than revenues, indicating a deficit. So the Lands End system cannot operate at a deficit, indefinitely. It would be drawing from other county funds to essentially subsidize the cost of service for those Lands End customers. On top of that, both the operating fund and the capital fund for the Lands End system are negative. So the plan would be to, number one, reverse the deficit. Number two, pay back the county for that negative balance. And then number three, plan for ongoing repairs and replacements of that collection system. Okay. So those needed capital improvements are software upgrades, SCADA, which is kind of electrical system improvements, air release valves, a share of a pumper truck. So my understanding is the county intends to purchase pumper trucks that will be shared between the different service areas, and so Lands End gets a portion of that. Okay. So very briefly, this is your current rate structure. Customers are billed bi-monthly, so every 2 months they get a bill, but for comparison purposes, this is the monthly rate. That's easier for people to understand. So there are base or fixed charges. So residential customers pay about $73 per month, and that's all kinds of residential customers. So that's single family, like a triplex would be 3 times that residential rate, as well as then you have different commercial categories. And it's interesting to note, Lands End is such a small area that the primary commercial customer is the theater or drive-in rate. So to be comprehensive in our rate study, we did do the rates and fees for all these different categories, but really it's only the theater rate, and I'll show that in a minute. Oh, and I think we had a note about the capital improvement charge, which got cut off, but we'll show that in a minute. Okay, so what we did is we looked at typical flow patterns at your sewer treatment plant, or your flows into the Lakeport treatment plant to estimate flows, and that's how we're assigning costs to different customers. We are proposing to split that residential rate into single family and multifamily. That's been a trend across California, is that multifamily customers typically use both water and sewer utilities less than single family, and so to be proportional and fair to them, they typically get a slightly less rate than single family. Okay, so here is the proposed rate adjustment. So the base fee is proposed to increase from about $73 per month to about $126. And then the CIP fee, so those are for those pipelines and the lift station improvements, that portion of the charge is proposed to increase from $4.50 to $8. So the total bill is proposed to increase by about $56.60 for that first rate adjustment. And again, that it's a high percent increase, but remember, Land's End is in a deficit and has no cash reserves to pay off that deficit. So again, right now, the rest of Lake County is subsidizing Land's End's rates. So this is a full cost rate proposal, and then the subsequent 4 years are just keeping up with the cost of providing service.
We have a quick question here.
I need a clarification of what you just stated. The rest of Lake County is subsidizing Land's End?
Well, technically, we have worked out a payment arrangement with the city of Lakeport, so we will be deferring some of the bills we will owe this fiscal year to next fiscal year until the rate study can catch up. But then a proportionate share of staffing and any kind of service and stuff like that. This is such a small district that it doesn't cover like an FTE or that kind of stuff. It's based on the size of the budget. So how we allocate our money, it's based on the size of the budget, meaning, like Northwest and Southeast are much bigger districts, so they get a bigger allocation. So that's how we have distributed it out. So we haven't, the other districts aren't really.
In some way, shape, or form, other districts are paying to cover the needs of Land's End, is what I'm hearing.
No, that's not actually true. We we're just not doing any capital improvements to Land's End. And then the city of Lakeport is going to defer their payment for this year, about $60,000, so that because we're out of reserves, and so they've agreed to let us pay that next fiscal year.
Okay, so the county is not subsidizing,
Correct, sorry.
Lakeport is subsidized. Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry I misspoke about that. I just meant it's not covering costs currently, and so we'll owe some dollars back. That's a
You
good.
have a question,
I
Supervisor?
do. There might not be any mobile home parks in this area. Maybe that's why it's not addressed on this, but what are the charges for the mobile home parks?
Oh, yes. So we are proposing a new multifamily fee that would apply to any future mobile home parks.
So it would come under a multifamily?
Correct.
Now, on the difference, it's about 50 gallons, I think it is, between the multifamily and the single family.
Correct. Yep.
And is that because of perhaps landscaping where it's not going, is it, do you have meters on the amount of sewage that's coming out of each home, or is that based on the amount of water they take? 'Cause I know we have water meters,
Oh, do you want to answer it?
water use.
Yeah, we don't have water meters or sewer meters on the flows going out of the houses. Industry standard is a single-family residence is 210 gallons per day, and so there's industry standards on like multifamily where there are, where it's like a mobile home park or something like that, where they traditionally don't have a single-family resident occupancy.
So you don't know for sure that they are actually putting 210 gallons versus was it 60 gallons into the sewer because it's not actually being monitored, is that correct?
There are no flow meters in sewer, and this is
Okay.
industry-wide. This is, it's based on industry averages.
Okay, but what I'm wondering is if the single families are using more of the water for landscape per se, or something along those sides, and they're really not using more of the sewer.
That's taken into consideration when they do the engineering and come up with industrial rates and, the like industry standard rates. Everybody takes into consideration you have a lot of excise when they calculate these out, and 210 gallons per person is expected to go through the sewer. That means laundry, dishes, as well as showers and everything else, versus landscaping. That's we don't take a 1-to-1 ratio of how much water they use that goes into the sewer necessarily. There's only like certain things that where like a laundromat, there isn't like sinks and showers and stuff going on like that. So they calculate these out industry wide.
Okay, so it's an industry-wide, it's not per se, we don't know this. Okay. I have a few more questions, but I'll wait a little bit.
You want to wait? Or?
Yeah,
Okay,
I have to catch up.
go ahead.
Oh, sure. I think all right. So I conducted a survey of different agencies. It's the typical single-family monthly bill for different sewer utilities. So Land's End's current bill is towards the lower end of these agencies here. And with the proposed increase, would get to the middle range of the surveyed agencies. And what I found was there are some other service areas within the county that are lower, but your very close neighbors in Sonoma County especially have extremely high rates where your Land's End, even the proposed rate, is not out of line with typical utility charges of small agencies. There's just not a large customer base to spread these costs over. And again, we also want to keep emphasizing that most of this cost is due to the city of Lakeport's charges for sewer treatment that the county does not control. And so here is a chart of the different proposed July 1st rate increases for the different customer types. You can see here that it's very heavily single-family residential, but we did have a new multifamily rate, and so that's where that if a mobile home park comes in to Land's End, that's the rate that they would pay, and then a very small commercial group there. And you can see these are the potential rate adjustments for different types of customers, but we don't have any of those because Land's End is so residential focused, except for the theater and drive-in. So you can see some of these percent increases seem very high, but there's not actually any customers that would pay those at this time. And just for to be comprehensive, this is the full 5-year rate plan. And there's a lot of numbers, but this is legally required information that we would include in the notice sent to all customers. Here we go. So that wraps up the formal presentation for Land's End, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, I also, are you?
Go ahead.
Okay, so regarding the $245,000 that we pay the city of Lakeport, is that contract also, my understanding it's going to expire at the end of this year?
Correct.
So
Their
how is that?
contract expires June 30. We are in negotiations to extend that for another year as they're working on their rate study and we're working on our rate study, and they're also trying to determine what's going to happen with the annexation. So they've requested just a status quo extension of 1 year.
And that was going to be my next question on, so my understanding, this is Land's End goes all the way from the city limits in South Lakeport on South Main, all the way down to Land's End off Soda Bay Road. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So and I know it hasn't happened yet, but it's potentially in the works that the city annexes a chunk of that, which may include annexation of the sewer infrastructure. Am I correct? So how would, if we've done this study and the rates go to where they go to, does that get readjusted or reevaluated when the city of Lakeport essentially takes half of that sewer system? Or how does that, I'm trying to understand how that would work at that time.
That would all go through the annexation process, and I would not expect that we would change our rates in the 4 years or 5 years of this study, and that we would then reassess after if the annexation goes through. Basically, we're passing through what the city of Lakeport is charging us, so those connections, those rates that they are currently paying, that they would just be paying directly to the city of Lakeport. So
So it'd be reassessed at the next
at
5
the next
year,
rate study.
and potentially we wouldn't be sending as much sewer to the city.
Correct, and we wouldn't be collecting as much either, and I would, we'll lose the maintenance of the pipes and possibly a lift station or two.
Okay. Supervisor Owen?
When I was looking over this, I didn't see any charges from Lake Ocean for this. I see the treatment and permitting, what that's costing, about $250. I see admin overhead. Staffing, is that part of the Lake Ocean? Is that portion of it?
Where she's saying, where does our admin and all of that,
Is it?
all of our staffing is paid through our admin fees.
Okay, so, so that's right now at 5,000, and by next year, you want it to be at 15, or, yeah, 26, 27, it goes from 5,000 to 15,000?
And that
For-
will allow staff for more maintenance time to
Yeah,
work
the
on this.
maintenance goes from 1,000 to 51,000?
Correct.
So that's maintenance of equipment, so that's like purchasing. The admin and overhead, that's the staffing. So we expect to see increase in staff time if this rate increase does pass.
Okay, so that is the portion that's Lake Osand, where the 250,000 is the city of Lakeport.
Correct. I mean, it's technically all Lake Sand. It runs through the Lake Sand, and it's a pass-through. We write a check.
For the 250? Okay.
Correct. We get quarterly bills from the city of Lakeport, and we write a check per the contract.
All right, I believe Supervisor Crandall was next.
Yeah, where have you done studies before?
All over the state of California,
How many were like similar to rural counties like ours?
heavily.
Heavily?
Yeah, so that's, we advertise our firm as we're a small firm and we focus heavily on small public agencies.
Are you the same group that studied for CSA too?
I did Kelseyville, Spring Valley, and North.
Spring Valley, yeah, CSA. Okay, and so I'd like to see us work a lot closer with the community if this goes forward. It's imperative to ensure that we specify who is getting the notices, the tenants, the ratepayers, basically, you know, those are kind of go hand in hand, or the owners, because I think that was a confusion last time with ours in Spring Valley, and then also ensure that the Spanish is a lot more, noticeable. We're not just having one line, we have a full page on the other side. I don't know how you do it, but you got to make sure that they have that. And I think that was it. I just wanted to make sure to note those because I know it was a big item of contention with Spring Valley as well when we had went through that process. Yeah.
And thank you. The difference between water and sewer rates, the water is sometimes paid by tenants or property owners, depending. The sewer rates are all required to be paid by the property owners. So these notices will be going to the property owners.
Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I guess, complicating things. I struggle to understand how this can be a viable system in the future. It's great that we're increasing maintenance from $1,000 to $51,000. What can you actually fix for $51,000 if something of importance breaks. That seems like a very low amount, and your reserves have $3,000 left. So, I mean, there's nothing to back it up at this moment in time. Then the increase, which just on the, in case you share this with the public after this, on table 8, you show rate revenue increase of 75%. I didn't check all the numbers if that's a 75% increase, but on the earlier part, you say 73% increase. So we should figure out if it's 73 or 75, but the numbers are different at least. But then it's an 8% increase, 8% increase, 8% increase, so it doesn't keep up with CPI. It's higher than CPI typically. I mean, 8% CPI is a really bad year as far as I'm concerned. And I mean, we're going up to rates of $340 per bill that you would receive because it's 170. So, I mean, here's what I would just suggest as offering. This is not a viable system. We have to figure out how to consolidate with a larger system. And I know that that's the possibility with the city of Lakeport, but the city of Lakeport also tried once and failed. So I'm not saying they're going to, I'm just saying it could. And to approve this all the way to 2030 for a system that is waiting to get help from the rest of the county or Lakeport if something goes bad, I see a problem with our expectation for a very important system that needs to make sure it has the appropriate management and maintenance of it. But it's also cost prohibitive. To be at all the way by 2030, $171 per month, and then some. So we have a lot of systems here. In my opinion, whether people like it or not, this needs to be consolidated with the rest of Kelseyville, the rest of Corinthian. Like, we have to bring these things together, because if one fails, we need everyone else to be able to support each other. Because, a perfect example is what happened over in the Valley Fire. If you don't have consolidated water systems, they fail, and then you have to go through a really arduous process to figure out how to bring these things back because they're not consolidated together to help. Why we're so shattered and scattered all over the place with our special districts and our systems rather than being consolidated, I would like to see some proposals for some consolidations, because that would be supportive of potentially decreasing the cost and supportive so that when there is an emergency, it's a Lake County strong perspective and not just individual, especially tiny systems like this that really cannot come back from an emergency. So I have grave concerns for the cost and the ability to actually maintain the system into this future. I'm really worried about the numbers.
I would like to respond if that's okay. So we have applied for a feasibility grant to consolidate the wastewater systems with Kelseyville, as well as going up through Soda Bay and seeing if we can consolidate a lot of those that are on septic. So yes, we share your concerns, and the administration and these very, very small systems, we worry that something could happen as well. So we are looking at options and the ability to consolidate them at least into their own waste, where if we consolidate them with Kelseyville, then they would have their own wastewater plant, and it would be all of that area into one district. I don't know, we are also very concerned about how we would pull all the septic systems in the Soda Bay and Rivieras all the way around, but that is a mission critical thing for the state. So we've applied for the funding, and it's a feasibility study through the technical program, and then we hope that they would see the importance of this. They're supposed to focus on consolidations and getting people off of septic, so hopefully there will be funding that will come with all of this. But it's not something that the ratepayers could pay for, so it would need to come through grants.
Yeah, and I appreciate the response, but and as you're giving me the response, I'm like counting the number of years that this might actually take to accomplish. What percentage, Mr. Chair, of Land's End is in the sphere of influence of the city of Lakeport? Because I'm just, in my opinion, consolidation with that, if they have a sphere that covers it, is probably the best way to move forward. Their rates are like $75, $80 right now, $86.05 in 2026. Again, the feasibility of the whole thing concerns me, because these are expensive systems to deal with, and it's nice to spread it out to a larger number of people rather than 292. So just
I don't have an exact number on that. I would say it might push towards at least 2/3 of it, but maybe you know better than me. That would go all the way down to like around the transfer station for the sphere of influence, if that's the
I don't
specific
have the
question.
numbers, but we could provide that just by running a billing record of who's in the Land's End portion and who's in the South Lakeport portion.
But it's primarily, the sewer connections are primarily in Land's End, we just don't know the exact number.
Yeah. I think it would be good to know. Yes.
The consistent 8% over the next 4 years, I think is too high. It's way too high. And the CPI though, I absolutely understand. You know, raising the CPI, that seems like a no-brainer. We need to be able to collect for our infrastructure, and not having the backups there, it's scary. We just can't do that. And the city of Clear Lake is a exact example of not having enough funding to replace infrastructure. As far as the rate increases, they're going up 73, 75%. I can't see that. I can't see doing that to our constituents. And this is not my district, but I'm here to look out for all of Lake County. And I know we do need to be looking at the Riviera as well, because I know that contributes to some of the issues with the lake. And so I know I can't support this right now.
Okay. I think that's it for the questions on this one. Or go ahead.
I do just want to make one final comment. I just want to read the last paragraph of the memo, because it was stated that this is direction, presentation only. Lake County Special Districts will present the results of the rate studies, the proposed new rates, and address any potential concerns from the board. Special districts will be looking to establish direction from the board, then proceed with the required mailing notices. So I think that there's a little bit more to this than just simple presentation. Just want to at least put it out there since it is in our memo.
Okay. Thank you.
We're gonna move to Southeast now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we'll jump into Southeast. So Southeast also has not had a comprehensive rate analysis done for quite a while now, but has done annual CPI inflationary increases. So we're following the same procedures, conducting the same type of analysis, looking at operating costs, infrastructure and capital improvements, and then also rebuilding emergency reserves, which are depleted currently. And same type of process where we're looking at different customer groups. This region, this service area does have quite a bit of commercial, so we spent some time looking at typical flows and pollutants of different types of businesses to adjust the rates. And for Southeast, we are also recommending that multifamily rate. This one is also a 5-year rate study, but Southeast, with the bi-monthly billing cycle, their next billing cycle, or an appropriate billing cycle to implement the rate adjustment, would be in August 1st rather than July 1st. So we're not trying to implement a rate mid-billing cycle. Okay, you've seen this chart already about the Proposition 218 process. And we will submit the notice in both English and Spanish when the time comes. the numbers. So Southeast is generating about 4.8 million in revenues, which does not cover about 5.8 million in ongoing operating costs. This fiscal year, there was an unusual amount of delinquency revenues, which we don't expect to get that same level of revenues year over year over year. It kind of depends on tax sales and other factors. So it's helping the financials slightly this year, but that won't be an ongoing revenue. You're getting a few extra $100,000 this year. But in general, taking account that more of a normalized delinquency tax sale revenue, we do expect a deficit of about $1 million a year. And then, unfortunately, with the sewer spill, the cash reserves were spent down and depleted. So there is not the bank account there to handle any other emergency needs. Okay. So the current capital improvement charge is $5.02 a month, and that generates about $400,000 a year. So capital improvement needs are a big driver for Southeast. So for identified projects, it's a range of items: land acquisition, dump station, a generator, headworks upgrades, treatment screens, lift station ceiling and design, capacity adjustments. So all of that totals about $2 million, and we're planning to amortize that cost over the 5-year period, so about $400,000 per year. On top of that, there are other upgrades and improvements that staff feel are needed to address ongoing deferred maintenance, deferred improvements. So pipelines and upgrades to the treatment plant, realistically for the size of the Southeast system, is appropriately priced at about 1.5 to 2.5 million a year. So we're having that phase in over the 5-year period up to the 2.5 million to address those longer term deferred improvement needs. So we put the pipes in the ground and we want them to last a long time, but they can't last forever. And so there is a need to keep up with that aging infrastructure in the ground. Okay, so this is the current schedule of sewer rates. Again, there's that one residential fee, so we are proposing to split that into a multifamily fee, and then a range of different commercial customer types. Hotels, motels, schools, convalescent home, bars, restaurants, theaters, the different types of RV campgrounds, if they have sewer, if they don't have sewer hookups. And then there is the splash pad. We have it listed there. I understand it's not a formally recognized rate, but I understand that customer is currently charged basically twice the single family rate currently. And then it's kind of cut off at the bottom, but there's the capital improvement charge of about $5 a month. Oops. So doing the same process as we've done for the other sewer rate studies, which is evaluating flows and pollutant loadings of each customer. We did look at water and sewer flow data over the past 3 years. So it's not individualized like each customer, like this house on Main Street has this level of flows, but it's the total plant, to everybody, all the customers into the sewer treatment plant. We're kind of checking our estimates matching what you're actually receiving as a whole into the plant. We're proposing the multifamily customer rate to go into effect, and the new splash pad rate be based on actual years water use and sewage flow. Okay, so here is the proposed rate adjustment where the base sewer fee is increasing. The capital improvement charge is a big chunk of that proposed increase, from about $5 to about $32. And then customers in the Southeast area also pay a bond fee, which is a dedicated special fee that we're not adjusting in this rate study. So it is a first year increase of about $44. And then a second year increase of about $12. And then by that point, you're caught up with those pipeline replacements, and that level of funding can just keep up with inflation thereafter. Okay. So here is the proposed rate adjustment. Southeast system is pretty low compared to these others, and then with the proposed increase, it's very comparable to the Lakeport, the current charge of Lakeport. And again, Lakeport is doing a rate study right now, so we expect that Lakeport charge to go up over the next few years. And Lake County's fees are much less than typical agencies and service areas in Sonoma County. Okay, so here is the kind of the breakdown of that base fee and the number of customers impacted. So there, for Land's End, there was the question about, well, the cash flow says you're raising X dollars of revenue, and that's a percentage, and then why is the single family rate a little bit different percentage? It's because each customer class is getting a slightly different percentage increase. So one customer group might be getting 13% for multifamily, but single family is getting 49%. So the percentages really do depend on the customer group, which is reflective of the wastewater flow and pollutant loading of that group. Okay. And then we have the list of charges here. And we overall, we did find that the commercial charges for the charges in addition to base rate are a little undercharged right now. So things like, a hotel motel is pretty comparable to a multifamily residence, right? It's somebody kind of living there, especially the ones with the kitchen. It's somebody cooking. That's a lot of pollutant, flow that should be appropriately charged. So that's the reason for some of the higher percent increases. It's that the current rate is maybe undercharging what they actually flow into the sewer. And then the biggest percent increase there is the splash pad, which is the equivalent flow that has been observed over the past year. That if you're not charging the splash pad what they're actually flowing, then that potential revenue has to be made up by the rest of the body of the ratepayers.
Supervisor, did you want to ask a question
was
now?
waiting.
Okay.
Wait till the end. Okay, thank you. And so here is the sort of the 5-year schedule of charges. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, I have a quick question. How long do these studies last as far as being able to utilize these numbers to change the rates?
Oh, that's a good question. So, we're starting with this year's, adopted budget. And so if you said, oh, we're pausing the rate study and we'll pick it up in a few years, is the budget and the cost data kind of no longer valid? That's what I'd be worried about. So if we get,
I would say 6 months if it
Oh,
was delayed by 6 months.
I would expect the numbers to be pretty solid still. I wouldn't expect, big changes to the rate
Okay.
plan.
I mean, at this time, I'm very uncomfortable even having the conversation about rate increases. We're still in the midst of an emergency. Some people still don't have access to clean, potable water. And I would like that to be finalized before we start talking financially what more we want. 100% there needs to be a rate study to do any type of increase, since the last time we've done anything was 2010. And so I'm not against doing the rate increases, maybe not specifically as stated here, but things need to increase. And I hope that we can see these increases more commonly done every 5 years, so that we don't have to do these massive increases, just like we were talking about for Land's End as well. I do have some concerns about some of the information that's on here. The reserves, I'm concerned about the statements being made. So it says estimated balance as of 6/30/25. Is that correct? That's supposed to be the date?
Let's see. So
I'm on page 9. I apologize.
so when we said like O&M going to 0, that's over the course of this year, and then the first year of our rate study will start at 0.
But it says estimated balance as of 6/30/25.
Yeah, we should maybe put some notes there that it's based on the start of the fiscal year for fiscal year 26, and then the start of fiscal year 27 will reflect the loss of reserve funding shown in the chart here due to the sewer spill. So I agree that I'll add some additional footnotes.
Because it was
there.
correct for the Land's End. It's exactly the 3,154 or whatever that number was. That was
Yeah.
correct based on what we have in our budget and what we approved for the reserves. This does not match. And in fact, I got a printout from what is currently in the reserves, and I'll hold back from specifically stating a number, but it is woefully different. And so maybe there's receipts hanging out on somebody's desk to pay off, but what's in our system is nowhere close to matching that. And until it's reconciled, I'm struggling to say that this is an appropriate study in the sense of this is where the reserves will be, therefore this is what rates need to be in order to increase our reserves and whatnot, especially we're still in conversations to try and see if there's any kind of reimbursement that may be out there. I might be deep sea fishing, but at the same time, I'm not giving up on that, and I sure hope no one else is giving up on that as well. And so it's possible that some of those reserves come back, or some of those reimbursements occur, and we could put that back into the reserves, which would potentially change what we're asking to obtain. When I do the actuals of the revenues and the actuals of the expenditures, I'm not seeing a huge gap. Yes, there's a gap, and again, of course there is, because the last rate study was done in 2010. And we had COVID with some pretty massive increases in every cost that you can think of imaginable. So again, of course, there needs to be an increase, but I think I'm just going to go off the top of my head. It was something like 5.25 average revenue and 5.85 or 5.65 average expenditures when I looked at from 2020 all the way to now. And so it feels like there's a larger gap in the study that you have, and I'm not sure if we're using the proposed versus actuals. And while I'm sure it's a common thing to do, it's weird to kind of use an estimate for the end of this fiscal year versus an actual of the previous fiscal years where we have some pretty hardcore numbers to say, here's what the cost of this system is. Haven't said that about any of the other rate studies, but I'm concerned about the cost. So, I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, and part of the conversation has to be a balancing act. The amount of delinquents. I am going to guess, I don't have the information, and I'm happy to be corrected, that you probably have the most percentage of delinquency in this system versus any of the other systems that are in special districts. Increasing the fees is a different way of saying we're going to make people who can't afford it pay more for it, because if you don't pay, there's a fine, there's a fee, there's a penalty. And so again, even in Southeast, can there be a conversation into looking at some sort of consolidation? Because we are, even at 15,000 or whatever the connections are, but at least 16,000, 15,000 from the previous, I'm thinking of the MSR, I apologize, mixing my numbers here. But at 16, 17,000 strong in the city, clearly, in reality, that is still a generally small system in the grand scheme of things when it comes to sewer districts. And it's all about the power of numbers. And it's so easy to increase a rate and say balance is a budget, but the community is impacted by what we do. So what I'm asking today is a postponement of, I'll even give you a range, 4 to 6 months. I would like to close out this emergency, which is slowly but surely happening. And then I'd like to really have a final tally of what is in the reserves, not I have a printout that says more than 4 million and you're telling me there's 112,000. We really need to reconcile that situation, because that is very far apart. And right now, if anyone PRA'd us with what we just approved on this study, it wouldn't match, and I can't say, well, I have receipts on a desk. So I'd like to complete those steps before moving forward. I do not want to stop this from happening. 2010 rates is not a good way to run a system in 2026. But I would like to have the respect of those that are still impacted by an emergency, to have that be done and finalized and truly finish the financial portion of this before we move forward with this uncomfortable conversation about increasing fees on folks who have already had an impact.
And Supervisor Hahn?
Okay. You know, I noticed that many of the comparables were in Sonoma area. We didn't really look at other areas that are probably more along the lines of our incomes and the same challenges. So Maxwell, for instance, Maxwell, California is $73. Corning is 44. You know, those are probably more, you know, rural, like we are. Rural. And so I just noticed that we had a lot of areas that were more affluent.
I'm doing the City of Corning's rate study right now.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And
It just wasn't on there.
I also know that the city of Corning, they have a huge car lots up there, car sales up there.
Yes, they
And
do.
some of their rates are actually offset by the by the sales tax. So
Okay.
they're able to save ratepayers on some of that kind of stuff. We have included the city of Lakeport's current one. We could reach out to to Clear Lake Oaks. I understand that their rates are higher than ours are currently, so we thought Lakeport was a good comparison within the county. Our other districts don't have the full CIP in there. When they recently did those, they did not include the current, you know, all of our expectations for the CIPs. And in this study, the primary increase is in the capital improvements due to the aging infrastructure and our dire need to start improving that. So those are why we didn't intentionally include like Northwest and Middletown and Kelseyville, because
Yeah, and
it's
well, I was
missing
looking
that
because you
huge
were
dollar.
primarily out of the area, but in a more affluent area, and I was looking at something more rural for more legit comparisons. I do absolutely know that we need to work on our infrastructure in the southeast. So that's understandable, but at the same time, we have to keep these manageable.
Supervisor Crandall? Okay. Any other, it doesn't appear we have any other questions. Do you have more to offer, or?
No, and this is just an information item, so there's no action. So we're taking your comments so that we can incorporate where feasible and that kind of stuff. That's really what we're asking for, so.
Okay. Then,
Just real quick,
ahead, Supervisor.
but one of the things I know also, just keeping into consideration the Spring Valley, when and if it gets to that one point where we're implementing a pay rate and how it's going to be laid out, consider, I know that with the pay rate they were looking at, it would have been substantially higher in the beginning or something like that. So maybe look at a strategic way so that it's incremental and it's not as as drastic in the beginning, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, but it comes down to the time value of money, and so it'll actually, if we spread it out evenly, it's going to cost the ratepayers more over time. That's why we have spiked it high in the first year. But we can definitely spread that out. But that's the trade-off to make it more, so it's more budgetable. It will actually end up costing more at the end.
Okay. In the meantime, that's why I gave the other insight about making sure that they have their proper mail-outs and whatnot, so when they protest it, they have the equal opportunity to protest it properly.
Supervisor Sabatier?
And I just want to share appreciation, Supervisor Crandall, for learning from that situation. I know that was a tough conversation. I just, because of what was stated by Director Bore, I just want to check in with the board. I'm looking for consensus to come back post-emergency with a reconciled reserves rather than the current status in which we're in.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to understand that number, and also, I do feel like it should be at least considered to allow that emergency to be over before we're talking about this. I know it sounded like you said that 6 months wouldn't change the numbers that much. So I think it's something that should be considered.
Yeah, and we're fine with that. This was just something that was scheduled. It was the board approved this way back in November, and so this is kind of a check-in with information.
Right.
So we can put that into the numbers as well. And you are talking about just southeast, and are you?
Yes,
doing-
I think we're just talking about southeast right now. The other one's a different situation. So unless we have anything further, I'm going to open it up to the public for comments. We'll start in the room.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm concerned that you're not getting an entirely straight answer or clear description of the rate structures here. When I looked at the rate structure for Ukiah, for Cloverdale, for Sonoma, they're not fixed rate structures entirely. They're a hybrid rate structure, and that's not being discussed here. I think Supervisor Owen kind of touched on it. Right now, there's no incentive in the current rate structure to allow a user to reduce their expenses. If you're a single-family dwelling, you're stuck with that sewer fee. A lot of municipalities do tie their water usage to their sewer usage because it's a relatively decent proxy for the amount of sewage that's going in there. This does not seem to allow for a chance for anybody to save any money. Doesn't incentivize conservation by the consumer or by the special district to improve efficiency or to do anything to reduce waste. A person that is a single-family dwelling can be watering all their plants with, special district's water instead of catching water from the rooftops. So I do support coming back at a later date, but I would suggest a rate structure that allows for the consumer to essentially save money. What is the fixed rate for supporting infrastructure? That should be a fixed cost, but the rest of it should be based on how much you flush and how much you drink and how much you shower. Just say, well, this is an industry average of what people use and we're just going to go to a flat rate. That's why you have leaky pipes that haven't been fixed in decades. That's why you have sewer systems that continue to leak. There's no incentive to fix it. You're still getting paid. It's a captive audience. So I would suggest reconsidering the entire rate structure to make it conducive to a more efficient system and a way for consumers to actually save money. You're going to price people out of wanting to build a home if they're going to be paying, this amount of money for a house they might not even be staying in all year. It's just not how a lot of other municipalities do it. And I would respectfully ask to go back to all the examples they provided and ask if it's truly a 100% fixed rate or if it's a hybrid or if it's based on usage, because it seems like it was normalized. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I briefly respond to that?
Yes.
The southeast sewer system is all we provide is sewer service over there. So we don't have any water meters to compare flows to or any such things. In order to calculate it by flow, we would have to install basically flow meters on every single house like we do water meters. And that would be an extremely high cost to, one, go through and read those, and two, to install them all. That's why we use the industry averages. We don't have, we have no way of looking at what the water is. We aren't the water company in that area. So.
Thank you. City Manager.
Good afternoon, Chair Rasmussen, board members, Alan Forrest, City Manager, Clear Lake. It sounds like there's some direction to delay this, which is good, but I'm going to stick with my pre-prepared comments. I want to start by asking this board to show some concern for Clear Lake and Lower Lake communities and provide direction to pause this rate increase. The timing around this proposal is not good. Our community is still under a state of emergency and grappling with the impacts of a multi-million-gallon sewer spill. Economics are tough, particularly in a severely disadvantaged community. Perhaps the most important thing I can stress today is around the validity of this board taking any action related to the Lake County Sanitation District. On November 20th, 2025, the City Council rescinded delegation of authority to the Board of Supervisors to serve as the Board of Directors of the Sanitation District. The county's been aware of this since we initially requested to meet about in April of 2024. I don't believe the county has any disagreements about the validity of the city's right to governance. You just don't want to accommodate this mandate. All actions since the withdrawal of delegation in November 25 can be considered invalid, including your direction today on rate increases. In spite of that, I do want to take the opportunity to share a few concerns with the proposal itself. I don't have time here to analyze specific line changes, but implementation of the proposed rates would result in a 120% increase in single-family sewer rates. This increase is in part justified in the study by comparing the proposed rates with other communities, primarily in Sonoma, Napa, and Mendocino County. These communities all have an average housing value of at least double the homes in Clear Lake. This is not an honest or fair comparison. It's very difficult to swallow the percentage of expenses being allocated to staffing and overhead. This makes up over 58% of the proposed budget. While I understand that staffing costs are necessarily a large part of any operation, $2.25 million in overhead and admin alone, in addition to direct staff costs, appears to be outrageous, particularly based on the level of service and care that Lake County Special District's leadership appears to put into the Southeast system. We've talked about reserves a bit. I want to reiterate the study states reserves are depleted. We've heard that multiple times from the administrator that they're depleted. The study says a balance of 121,328 as of June 30th, 2025. I'm not sure why it shows estimated when the county knows exactly the amount of reserves as of June 25. The fiscal year is closed. Financial documents verify that just over 2.2 million were in reserves as of that date. The budget also included adding reserves throughout this fiscal year, overall increase of 890,000, which was result in over 3 million in reserve balance. It's also unclear from the budget whether the $2 million loan repayment from Spring Valley District has been reallocated to one of the reserves. It would appear that it's sitting in fund balance but has not been reallocated at this time. One way to verify this, of course, is from the county's own financial system. And
We're at the 3 minutes, just if we can wrap up.
Oh, okay, well, there is 4.7 million in reserves as of yesterday. You know, I have a lot of stuff here that I think should be shared with the board. It's unfortunate that we don't have the opportunity to do that, but it's only taken a short period of time for the city to identify the rate study before you was not based on accurate information.
We
Appears
do
have
need
been rushed through.
to wrap up. I mean, you still have the option to send us information. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Margot Kambara, I would like to yield my time to Mr. Flora. Mr. Flora?
We don't do
No?
yielding of time,
I'm sorry.
but
Thank
they
you.
do have another speaker. Go ahead, Supervisor Sabati.
I know we've done this before for fire districts and others. If he can just finish his letter, he is a partner
Me-
of ours.
Check in with the board.
It's a little bit different than a normal public comment.
Yeah. Okay, come on back up, Alan.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate that. Other concerns around the accuracy of the rate study analysis are highlighted by expense numbers not being tied to actual budget numbers, at least the best I can tell. For example, the study shows this current year budget expenses being 5.8 million. The actual budget shows an adopted total of 9.5 million, or 6.3 million after capital assets are removed. The capital improvement plan in the rate study includes an investment of 3.2 million. First, it's a bit shocking that the district is supposedly been working on a real capital improvement plan, but to my knowledge, that CIP has not been approved by this board. Why would you even consider a rate increase based on a capital improvement plan that has not been adopted? Further, I question why the district has requested or is in the process of applying for millions of dollars for various upgrades from state and federal government agencies. It isn't clear in this study if those capital projects are being covered by ratepayer funds rather than grant funds that relieve the ratepayers of the burden of these increases. Why wouldn't you wait to see if you can receive those grant funds and adjust the rates accordingly? Finally on this, I'm surprised to notice on the list includes not ratepayer funded, but $1.1 million in infiltration and inflow reduction project funded by the Integrated Regional Water Management Program. The board took action to apply for these funds in July of 2020. Should it really take 6 years to complete or even start this project? Before the board considers any rate increase, there needs to be a lot more information provided on the bond funding charges included in the rates and the nexus study or the calculations behind the rates that were really just provided in a summary format to the public and to the board. Based on our recent history with special districts and what has been presented today, we have essentially no confidence that this information can be trusted. Please show some care for our community and insist that special districts do this properly and accurately at a more appropriate time. In closing, just to be very pointed, I have to share a quote from a text I received from someone this morning. It was clearly about this issue. No amount of taxation can fix ineptitude of leadership. I have to agree. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, Russ Kramer, council member, City of Clear Lake. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, you're former mayor.
That's okay. You can call me mayor. Now, council member, City of Clear Lake. Also a member of the Lower Lake Community Action Group, so I have some, obviously, care for that Lower Lake part of the district as well. And I double dip. I was in the impacted area from this sewer spill, which quite frankly didn't have to happen, but did. Or the severity of it didn't have to happen. And I'm a ratepayer. I own another home in Clear Lake that is in the sewer district and will be impacted by this giant increase. Mr. Flora pretty well stated all of the facts and all of the beliefs of the city council, of myself, and I believe of my fellow city council members with regard to this issue. And last, just to do this at this time is quite frankly adding injury to or insult to injury on this to an area that's that are have a lot of low income inhabitants, and to double the single family fee is just ludicrous at this time. I understand that it will need to be increased, but I think we need to take more care in the studies. That example of the $4.7 million in retained earnings and reserves that was not recognized for this study is inexcusable. The comparison to other cities, excluding, did have the other cities outside of this area. They're clearly are in more affluent communities. That was fine, but having other districts that are within this county, even if there is some differences in them that could be explained away, they should be included in that rate study as well. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else in the room that wishes to speak? Then we'll move to online. Betsy, you go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, everybody. This is a really important discussion. I have several comments to Supervisor Owen and to the public and possibly to other members of the staff present. There's a great deal of confusion in people's minds about Lake Osan and Special District Administration. Lake Osan is the institution that provides the sewer services. As far as I know, the Board of Supervisors sits as the Board of Directors of the Sanitation District, which is a dependent special district separate from the Board of Supervisors. I don't believe you changed hats like you do sometimes with the Watershed Protection District, but it's the same process. And it sounds to me like that, especially in the situation where the city of Clear Lake has to come to you and ask and beg you to talk to them about sewer problems that everybody shares in this sanitation district. And for Mr. Flora to be cut off as a member of the public, I found that really embarrassing. I'm really sorry, but it seems to me like the level of civic dialogue is lacking in this as much as accurate data. I just have a couple more minor things about your chart where you showed the comparison with other areas, other locations. I didn't catch it when you showed the chart for the southeast area, but for the Land's End, the chart itself, if I read correctly, for the out of the county areas, referred to Riverside, Russian River County, South Dakota, and Occidental County in South Dakota. There is a small, I mean, unless I'm reading that incorrectly.
I believe it's special district and not South Dakota.
Well, okay, special district, but Russian River what? Are you referring to Russian River Sewer District?
Yes,
There, is that what you're talking about?
yes.
Okay. Occidental is a highly difficult service area out in the middle of the Sonoma County area, and I wouldn't consider it to be comparable to what we have. But as far as the consolidation issue is concerned, of course, we've hoped for and tried to achieve the Full Circle program now since before the year 2000, which ultimately will be the solution to removing all of this sewage. But the repair and maintenance of this old equipment, which Robin Bore inherited, it's not her cause, she didn't cause all these problems.
And that was your
Yeah.
timer, Betsy, just so you know, if you could wrap up.
Certainly. I also think we need to address the fiscal study analysis issues. What is really appropriate to include since there's so much controversy? Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie?
Why didn't you mention me?
Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Stephanie Paceno. I'm a property owner and a small business owner on Robin Lane. I strongly oppose any increase in sewer rates. It's unreasonable to ask to pay more for a service that is clearly failing to provide a safe and reliable service. Bouncing off of that, I would like to ask for a community town hall meeting because of the Robin Lane spill. I know a lot of our neighbors and everyone around here has a lot of unanswered questions. We're getting a lot of different answers. I would ask if somehow we can put something together so that we can get answers from officials, agencies, and just get up-to-date information. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name is Cassandra Hulbert. I live in the Robin Lane area impacted by the January sewage spill. I'm here to strongly oppose any sewer rate increases at this time, not because I don't understand the infrastructure costs money, but because there's been a serious lack of transparency, accountability, and public trust throughout this entire process. We're now being asked to consider raising rates while the public still does not have clear answers to some very basic questions. How much has the spill actually cost? What has been paid versus what is still owed? And what is the true financial position of special districts today? We've learned spill-related costs were intentionally left out of the mid-year budget, and even members of this board here were expressing confusion reviewing those numbers. And the county's acknowledged it doesn't actively track department cash counts. At the same time, special districts is reporting being out of money within days of the spill, yet budget documents still appear to show remaining reserve. That disconnect matters because without clear and accurate financial reporting, you can't responsibly ask the public to absorb additional costs. There are deeper concerns here. We now know that much of the Southeast system was inspected years ago, and known issues may not have been addressed. There are unresolved financial disputes with the city of Clear Lake, as we well know, and residents like myself are still living with the real impacts of this failure. And the impacts are ongoing, not theoretical. So the question then becomes, why are we talking about raising rates before we have full transparency, full accounting, and a clear plan to prevent this from happening again? Rate increases should come after a complete and publicly presented accounting of the spill-related costs, a clear explanation of how reserves were managed, and a demonstration commitment to proper maintenance and oversight moving forward. Before any rate increases are approved, there should be a full, independent, and transparent accounting, whether that calls for a forensic audit or otherwise, so the public can understand exactly what happened to the funds that were already collected. Until then, asking the public to pay more feels premature at best and irresponsible at worst. I also would like to request another town hall meeting. This community has already paid a very real price, and we deserve clarity before we're asked to pay again. Thank you.
Thank you. Sterling, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I had something typed up, but now that you guys aren't going to take a vote, but I do agree with Bruno, and I do agree with EJ asking the question if this is the same company that did the Spring Valley rate study, as I was a part of that. I am a rate or a sewer, I pay sewer in Clear Lake, so it's going to affect me also. But it's the fact of the matter, we're using a same company that does inferior rate studies, or if it is, special districts isn't handing over the correct information. Things are left out that shouldn't be left out. Numbers don't add up. And if they're going to say that they are in a deficit due to the sewer spill now, then that all the money that was spent in the sewer spill is now mandated by the state of Constitution of Prop 218 to now be put into that rate study, so that the consumers can see the true cost of what it's going to cost to run that system. Ratepayers of Lake County, of taxpayers, have already paid $1.75 million to help clean up this bill. Now we're going to turn around and ask consumers to help put funds back into a reserve. The capital improvements is in a negative 202,000. Infrastructure is failing. We need to do an audit. This is actually, Robin has inherited this problem. This comes from previous directors of serious mismanagement, and it has been brought to this board many times about special districts mismanagement. And it just feels like it's been fell on deaf ears until something this critical has happened. So before we can even do a rate study, we need to know those numbers. We need to know what the actual cost was, the actual spillage, how many pumper trucks came in, came out, when the time of those pumper trucks arrived to start doing that. Because if we can find out the actual cost of what it was to clean up that spill, then we can start applying in California and federal funding to get that money back to put back our taxpayers' money. So I really hope that you guys listen this time, you hear the community speaking to you guys, and just make the right decision and not make a really bad decision after already a bad decision from previous directors have made a catastrophic failure. Thank you.
Thank you. No more hands. I'm going to bring it, close public comment, bring it back to the board, and Supervisor Sabatier.
Yeah, this may cause a little bit of alarm, but I think it's something that we need to discuss, especially if the sewer district is connected to the full circle. The public, the board, and we need to better understand what the costs are to individual districts. I know I've been asking some questions. I still have more questions. But I know from the past, and I appreciate that after finally getting some and I don't mean finally like you did not provide that, but we agreed to a 25-year extension, 20-year extension, I forget what it was, without any financials provided to us. I still don't understand how that's possible. And that's on the ratepayers. It appears to me that we have reduced the cost to the ratepayers, but that means in the past, that was being subsidized by taxpayers, by ratepayers. So I have problems with using kind of past numbers for rates that were subsidizing a corporation's pipeline. We possibly have solved it, but I don't understand the numbers enough to understand what is our true cost for each district, because I don't think it's appropriately split, and I'd like to make sure that we have an understanding of how it affects the rates, because the cost of the entirety of the pipeline from Northwest all the way back around the lake into Middletown and to Calpine is a cost to the ratepayers, but it's supposed to be the cost of what it would take for us to handle the effluent on our own, which in the past was around $250,000, at least in the 1995 agreement for doing the sprinklers. I was not given a potential cost of what it would cost us to do the sprinklers today, but that's the cost our ratepayers should be paying. The rest should be on Calpine, and I don't know those numbers. And I think if we're doing a rate study, we should make sure 100% we can show that the ratepayers are not subsidizing someone else's pipeline. And I don't see that in here. And I forgot to bring it up earlier, but I think it is an important part of the conversation. We do need to be supportive in the sense that it does create jobs, it does create tax revenue, but it shouldn't be on the backs of the ratepayers.
That's right.
And there is absolutely nothing that's on here about that.
Supervisor Owen? Go ahead.
I'm going to ask, it's something I've been wondering for the last year, and I'm wondering, do we need to have an outside audit for some of our departments, including this one, but this is not the only one. And I just want to be absolutely transparent and to be honest, when people make the comments that we're not being transparent, and this is went back years, long before I was here, and probably long before any of us were here, for that matter. So just to clear the air and to make sure that we're absolutely correct in what we're doing, I'm wondering, would this be the time, or how would we go about looking at, or how do we feel about having an outside audit?
Well, go ahead, Supervisor.
My suggestion is that's not for us to give direction or take action on, but
Okay.
if it's something that's brought back to the agenda for that discussion specifically,
Okay.
That is something we could discuss.
Thank you.
We also do have regular audits.
Outside?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's certain ones that are required.
And when was this last one done? For, say, this department, because there's several.
Annually, they do an audit.
There was an outside audit in 2019.
19, so it'd be time. I mean, it's been, what, 7 years?
And I think what you're asking might be slightly different than what's done in the single audit that we do annually from the auditor controllers, but I can show you where all those are, but maybe it's something more specific, and I'd love to continue that conversation with you.
Thank you.
Okay, so did you have anything further?
It was brought up about the full circle. The full circle is a disposal of effluent. It is not a consolidation of wastewater treatment plants and collection systems. So it's a disposable process instead of running into the issues where previously we had more effluent to dispose of during the rainy season than the sprinklers could handle. And this was done 20 plus years ago to send the effluent to the geysers as a disposal mechanism. And so it's strictly the full circle, and the pipeline to the geysers is not raw sewage. I just wanted everybody to be clear that that was not raw sewage being shipped around.
Thank you. So I read it as we had given some, we had consensus, it sounded like to me, for direction on holding off on this for about 6 months related to Southeast. That was my read of that conversation, and then also that we had consensus to figure out the numbers on the reserve.
And just because I don't want to have to start over this, I would say no more than 6 months. Let's
Right.
bring that back, because again, we have to have the discussion. I don't want us to be thrown away and started over. The discussion needs to happen. I think, and I'm hoping that in 6 months, we'll be in a much more balanced position to have this conversation with things being finalized.
And the 6 months would be kind of the maximum end based on their statement that the numbers may be good for that 6 months. But just to mention for the public too, just so it's clear, we didn't start this process after the emergency. This started back in the fall before we ever knew we were going to have an emergency. So this wasn't something that was brought forward because we had an emergency. I'm just stating this to be clear for the public that may be listening, that that's where we are. But the board has said, let's delay it until at least the emergency is over.
And we can bring back a clearer understanding of how the reserves work. Southeast has multiple reserve funds. When we say we've depleted the reserve fund, that's the operation and maintenance fund, which is what was used to clean up the spill. That is the proper use of those funds. We have other reserves like capital improvement reserves, and the bond that's a payment bond that was done decades ago, or 10, 20 years ago. And so that repayment is for 30 years or however long. So that's why that is on there. But we can spell out exactly what reserve is where, and why they look so different.
Okay. Are you clear on what was the direction?
What about South Lakeport?
Well, we were going to move forward on, I believe, that one. There was no,
We don't want to look at, because we don't want to look at the options, what other options might be out there if Lakeport's going to,
if they're going to annex.
yeah,
Well, that's something that I think is an unknown right now.
okay.
I asked that question because I am wondering how that's going to work. If they annex a third or 50% of our sewer system, we definitely need to have further discussions, but I took that as there was no further direction from the board. Go ahead.
I'll take direction from you, Chair, since it is in your district on that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that one's a little more problematic. But let me just ask, would that be a problem if that came back at the same time, or does that one need to get, I'd like to hear more on.
That one is in much more dire strait, where the city has agreed to postpone payment for some of the this year fiscal year costs to, in a expectation that the rate study will be done and we'll be able to adjust those for them.
And based on the situation there, I'm okay with that one being separate from coming back at the same time of Southeast. That's where I'm at. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just for clarification and confirmation from your board, I believe there's 2 items there that your board has consensus on. I just wanted to check that as it relates to those 2 items, that it's a full consensus from your board.
That was my understanding.
Bringing them both
Just to
back.
confirm. Thank you.
For those 2 items. Okay. I don't believe there's anything further.
Robin, did you say that, did you wish to look into the South Lakeport and bring it back sooner? You said it was more dire straits.
No, that one's not to bring back, to move forward with that one.
Oh, move forward.
The two items are
Reserve numbers.
the reserve numbers, and basically wait for the
Yes.
provide more details on.
Right, and we're not moving forward with southeast till the emergency is over.
Yes.
And the 6 months was the maximum end of that, but didn't mean it couldn't be in 4 months if that was the situation called for it.
I'm still unclear what the South Lakeport, you said moving forward, so does that mean that we are increasing the fees?
No, it's got to go through the rate study.
It's,
Okay,
it's
okay.
the next step, the next step of the board-approved rate study in November.
Okay.
The next step is to send out the notices to all of the property owners in South Lakeport, North and Land's End, and start the Prop 218 process. It will come back in, I think it's May or June, where we have public hearings. And so there'll be action then.
Yes, we're not deciding, we're just
Okay,
moving forward with the
Yeah.
process.
okay.
And then it'll be in front of us again for decisions.
Final decision.
Yeah. All right, I think that concludes this item then. And I believe that concluded all open session. So I'm going to go ahead and read off closed session at this point. We will have item 8.1, public employee evaluation, title librarian. Item 8.2, public employee evaluation, title air pollution control officer. 8.3, public employee evaluation, title behavioral health director. 8.4, public employee evaluation, title health services director. 8.5, title public employee discipline dismissal release. Item 8.6, conference with labor negotiator. Conference with labor negotiator being A, chief negotiator Susan Parker, county negotiators Jay Salone, Stephen Carter, Casey Moreno, Pam Samick, and Diana Rico, and B, employee organization, Deputy County Council Association. And 8.7, conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2 E1, 3 potential cases. And is there anybody in the public that wishes to make a comment before we move into closed session? Not seeing anyone in the room, no hands online. We are adjourned from open session and we'll be in short recess until we're shut down. Partial shutdown.